You're listening to the Productive Therapist Podcast, the world's greatest and most brilliant resource for busy therapists who'd rather be laying on a beach in Hawaii. Each episode is packed with simple tips and inspiring insights from the Productive Therapist team to help you grow your practice and have fun doing it. So without further ado, let's help you get more done and have more fun.
Hello and welcome back to the Productive Therapist Podcast. Thanks so much for being here. I appreciate that you are listening. Today I had a really fun conversation from one nerd to another with a new friend named Jeff Bourque, and he's a data expert who spent years building corporate level dashboards for major companies like Sony and HealthTrust. Then he pivoted into the mental health space after he created a game-changing dashboard for his wife's practice, Red Therapy Group. Now, today, Jeff combines his heavy-hitting data experience with a deep understanding of the group practice world to help owners see their numbers in a whole new light. I found this conversation really interesting, and I hope you do as well. Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you. I think this is the first time that we're actually talking in person, that we've corresponded some, right?
It is. And we have a sort of a unique connection because your wife was one of the first members of Productive Therapist Services back in 2019.
Yes, that is correct. And I didn't realize it was early on for you as well.
Yeah.
But yes, we had one of your virtual intake coordinators for about 2 years, I think, once she first started the practice, until we could, afford to hire like a full-timer local.
Right.
That was a really nice bridge for us to have because, man, trying to do it all yourself, especially as a brand new group practice owner with everything else she was trying to do and all the hats she was wearing, it was a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So it was cool to interact with you over the last year or two and see what you've been up to. And then hopefully at some point our paths will actually cross and we'll meet in person.
Yeah, surely the conference world will bring us together.
I think so. Yeah. So I would love to hear from myself and my audience, like, what is your background and how did you get into building group practice dashboards for therapists?
Sure. Yeah. So about a little over a decade ago, I got into data as a career. I worked for some very large millions and millions of rows kind of data sets for hospital corporations and that sort of thing. And just, learn the ins and outs of data stuff, like how to put it all together, how to get it summarized, how to make it easy to read for those who are using it on the other end. And then Kelly started her group practice, right? 2019, like you said. I was still doing full-time work at that point, but pretty soon came off of the full-time world and started helping her with her practice. And so part of that was like, oh, wow. My data skills might come in handy here, just looking at all of our EHR data and trying to figure out inquiries and conversions and all of that kind of stuff. So I put together our dashboard and worked on that for a few months. And then she showed it to a couple of her group practice owner friends who were in a group with her, and they were excited about it and wanted their own. And pretty much from then on, it's been going. I mean, that was 3 years ago. and I mean, it's just been, a network of people, one to the next, right? Just all, hey, you said dashboard. I've got one and here's who you need to reach out to. So I'm really appreciative of that network and it's been great. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it when the beginning, like the origin of a business is, I saw a problem, so I came up with a solution.
Right.
And then people started to talk about it, and then it was a business.
Yeah. And 3 years ago, this was before Practice Vital World, really.
Sure.
I mean, I think they had started, but it wasn't that well known. And so it's good to see that there's more out there now for group practice owners than there used to be. But it really is a need, a huge, huge need for to be able to see their practice in front of them.
I agree. Now I have two quick questions that are not even on my list, but number one is, what do you enjoy the most about working with data? Like, why is that interesting to you?
I'm just a nerd, man.
Yes.
I'm totally, part of why I look forward to this podcast was so I could just geek out with you a little bit, because I know you're a nerd too. But I wrote my first sequel, when I started a career change a while back. And as soon as I did, I thought, oh my gosh, I love SQL. I love
Yeah.
this kind of code. It's the data language, right?
Right.
And so yeah, rows, numbers, formulas, it's just always the way my brain has worked. So to get in there and to pretty much teach myself, I did have a
Yeah.
mentor in the space, but to teach myself how to do all of that and make it workable and readable and helpful, man, it just, I don't know why really. I've always
You were
loved
made for
numbers.
this.
I've
You were
loved,
made for this.
I'm a math guy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's
that's
great. I like it. My follow-up to that one is, in your experience, group practice owning therapists, do they tend to also be numbers and data people or metrics people, or not, or sort of in between? It kind of depends on the person.
Right. Well, there are like three different types of group practice owners I've worked with. You have the detail oriented ones. They sometimes can be very numbers oriented as well. They're the ones that hand you, they say, okay, I've got a Google spreadsheet. I have a line per metric. I've got the definition. I've got the
Hmm.
thresholds. I mean, the source, like it's just mapped out, right? So those, they're very easy to work with because you know exactly what they want. And then the second is more the like the CEO type, right? They are the big picture, the idea people. They love to just do new things and create. And this is my wife, right? So it's just like she's like, Jeff, I just want to see the top of the line, right?
Right.
Very top, high level. Give it to me. Tell me if there are problems somewhere, and then I'll be able to drill down into that and figure it out. But she does not want to spend a lot of
Hmm.
time looking at numbers. Like, in fact, no times looking at numbers is your CEO types. So then the
Yes.
third one is these are the ones I think you guys have talked about. I heard you were talking conversation of the podcast, but it was those who just kind of defaulted into being a group practice owner. I
Right.
think there's a large swath of those kinds represented in this world. And they are pretty much saying, well, what are other group practice owners doing? Like, that's what I want to do. I know I need to look at my numbers. I know I need to know something about inquiries and marketing. And then over here, if my therapists are actually making money for the practice, how are other people doing this? So
Sure.
that's kind of my, but most of them are not numbers people. I would say maybe
That makes
10,
sense.
15, 20%.
Yeah, that makes sense. But we all want to make good decisions for our businesses and make sure
Right.
that we stick around for a while and can also support our families and do all those important things.
Right.
It's interesting in the Facebook groups and in various conversations, I see therapists are continually talking about marketing specifically, whether
Yes.
it's, Google AdWords or SEO or various different efforts that they're taking. And oftentimes there's a spend related to that. So they're putting out money as an expense and they want to make sure that they're getting some sort of result. And if you don't look at
Mhm.
your numbers, if you don't know any of those metrics, then you really don't know. I spent $1,000 on Google AdWords, but I have no idea where it went. So
Yes.
is that one of the first things that people start to talk to you about? Like, I got to figure out how to understand the ROI or like return on investment for my marketing efforts? Is that like a top need?
Yep. One of the top three areas. It's kind of the front end, right? It's
Hmm.
the entryway into your practice. And when you're throwing money at stuff, like you just said, you have to have a way to track how people out there are finding your practice. Um, I think most group practice owners listening to this podcast probably don't have a CRM, right?
Hmm.
Some might, but most of us are not living in Therasas world, right? So we have to have some way of maintaining a spreadsheet or some kind of input that says, how did they hear about us? How did they find their way to us? And as much as you can figure that out, that then becomes the data you need to connect that to, ooh, this inquiry actually showed up for a session in my EHR, right?
Right.
If you don't have the data in the front end to connect to the data in your EHR, then you're never going to know how your marketing efforts are doing. It's just going to be this kind of feel, right? Oh, our inquiries went up over the last 3 months of doing Google ads, but I don't know how many actually came from Google ads or if it's some kind of, I don't know, sideways correlation between the starting of Google Ads and where we are now. So it's always good to have real numbers, right? And so what I usually do is I just, if people aren't tracking that right now, a lot of times you'll have some way of tracking your intake, right? You've got a spreadsheet or you have a Google form that's then spitting into a spreadsheet. And that's at least one way that people find your practice and reach out to you. Those are all good starting points to get you what you need to then connect to your EHR data and say, did this actually convert?
Right. So referral source or how they came to the practice is like one data point that you want to collect.
I think it's the most important data point from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
And when we are setting up like contact forms for practices that we work with, because Simple Intake is our intake CRM, that's one of our offerings. We always put that referral source question on there, and we tend to always make it required to like sort of force people to fill that out.
Great.
And it's not 100% accurate because they might have, they might not know how they got to you from an AI search or a Google search. But if you can put that question in front of them and they give you some data, then you can take that and, like you said, kind of track things down and see how it's going. Is there another way that you found to collect that, or is that kind of like the best one?
It's the other way I would say is a little more on the technical end is when somebody's like specifically setting up your Google Ads campaign. And there's a way for them to differentiate the form that's being used for that, as opposed to the form that's just your website, where other users would just find it more organically. That helps a lot because then you can say, oh, this one was a Google ad form that came in, and I can then track exactly how these convert, into my EHR. And when I say converting to your EHR, you can eyeball that. Right. You can take some time to look at your data and go, okay, did this inquiry that I've got on my spreadsheet for my intakes, from my intake coordinator, did they end up completing a session in Simple Practice or what have you?
Sure.
And then there's also the data generated kind of automated way to do that, where you're connecting by phone number or email to your EHR from your spreadsheet to see who actually showed up. What's their lifetime value to my practice for this particular, inquiry that came in? And therefore, if you can put all that together, what is an inquiry worth that comes from Google Ads or comes from somebody just doing an organic Google search or a phone call, So those are the ways that it makes it helpful to see the ROI right in front of you. You have specific numbers. Yeah.
And of course, if the therapist or the intake coordinator talks to the person and they don't have that information, it seems like a priority to ask, how did you hear about us? And then record that either in the spreadsheet or the CRM so that then you have at least hopefully consistent information coming in on that, right?
Yeah. And I would say, yes, for sure. But I would say, even if you don't get everybody, it's still better than nothing. You still have, if you're getting, 70, 75%, you can still see trends. You can still have a numeric value for whenever this was filled out and it said Google or web search, this is how much money we can expect from a conversion.
Right.
So those, it doesn't have to be perfect.
I
will say, whenever possible, this is just data 101, but it's not a well-known thing because I've seen it everywhere. Drop downs. Make sure your data is clean. So it's easy for your intake coordinator, right? They just click something and they know, okay, I choose one of these options for how they heard about us. Or your user in the Google form, it's a drop down. It's not a free field so that they're typing in it's a different form of Google search than web search than Google. All those end up being something that has to be cleaned up on the back end, right? As a data. That's what I spend time doing sometimes. It's like, okay, I'll normalize this, make it all, something that can actually be read on a dashboard.
That's good. That makes a lot of sense. I remember, I'm not running Google Ads for my group practice anymore because I'm actually shutting it down. But when I was for many years, I would wake up like maybe twice a year and think to myself, is this working? Is this worth it?
Right.
And to be honest, the Google Ads company that I use had really good reporting. So I had good information from them. But
Yeah.
I wanted to track it down, and it was always a manual process where I would go like, okay, I would look at their reporting and go like, okay, so I got this many clicks from Google Ads, and then I would actually go in and they were doing some call attribution and call tracking as well. So then I would
Right.
go track those people down in the referral log
Yep.
and then into the
Yep.
EHR, and I would literally count the sessions and the billable amounts. So I'd say,
Yep.
okay, well, in this month we got this much action from our spend, and then this is
Mhm.
how much we got. It was just so manual that I didn't do it very often. What's
Sure.
the better way to do that?
Well, I mean, dashboards.
No, tell me more.
So yeah, I mean, if you can, there's a lot of things that AI can do if you're into that. And if you're just working off of a spreadsheet and you're trying to summarize numbers off of a spreadsheet, that's one way to try to do it. But to actually connect your systems together to where you can see somebody completed a session in your AHR, that takes some kind of back end stuff, right? I mean,
Sure.
you can export your appointments data or your contact details or whatever it is, but man, Simple Practice has that stuff in about 5 different spots,
Mm-hmm.
your exports, and you've got to then tie those together to end up, So that is what I do. It is frustrating. It is manual. It is, if you're trying to do it yourself, and it takes a lot of time. If you're doing it for a snapshot, like what you were doing, where you're just
Right.
once in a while, you're like, man, I just really want to know.
Yeah.
Then you can do it, take a sample, see 30 rows of your intake or 50 rows or something, and then
Mm-hmm.
just see, did this person show up? What marketing method did they, or what referral source did they come from? So it is possible to do it kind of in a sampling way, manually, but you're going to spend an awful lot of time trying to connect those things on the back end if you're wanting a more comprehensive and,
Right.
something that updates every week, so you
Yeah.
see it
Yeah.
in front of you.
Before we continue, I want to tell you about my product, Simple Intake. As a longtime practice owner, I always had the same problem. Too many inquiries were slipping through the cracks. So I built the solution. Simple Intake is an all-in-one mental health CRM that actually works. It responds to inquiries in seconds with an AI receptionist, follows up automatically, and schedules consultations 24/7. So your clinicians stay booked, you stop losing new clients, and you finally get your time back. You can see it in action at productivetherapist.com/simple intake. All right, let's get back to the episode. I think out of the 3 kinds of therapists that you described earlier, the
Right.
sort of a spreadsheet nerd, and then the CEO, and then I guess like the one that wants best practices.
I call them heart-based. Like, I mean, everybody's got a big
Heart-based.
heart as therapists.
Yes.
Those are the ones where they're just like, I just like therapy. This is why I got into this bit, so
Yeah. I think I'm number 2. I'm like the visionary CEO type
Yes.
person that like, just give me the distillation. I just want to know, the basic information that I need. And then for me, I'll confess this to you. I tend to be more of like I make decisions based on gut feelings versus data and metrics.
Yes.
And so I'm
Right.
working on being more data driven and, using my intuition, of course, but also like actually looking at the numbers and helping make better decisions with that good information.
Yeah. And
and I
I'll
imagine,
tell you,
yeah,
go ahead. What were you
I was
gonna
just gonna say, I think there's more therapists out there like me that need a dashboard like the ones that you create
Right.
to like
Right.
inform them and guide their process.
Yeah. Well, 2 things. One, I wanted to say, I know that you're doing your AI intake coordinator. Like that's a big
Mm-hmm.
push for you right now. It's great. I listened to the podcast about that as well. And something like that can be tracked in this way. And you probably have more on your side that you're doing. I don't even know what the simple intake, how it all works, but
Yeah.
if you can see how many conversions am I getting from my AI assistant and versus how much you're paying per month, and you can see
Mm-hmm.
the value of that, I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
tells you exactly whether or not you need to continue, right? And I'm pretty sure people will continue once they see a number.
Yeah.
It tells them how much they're making from those not missed contacts, right? And then secondly, I want to say early on when we were doing this for our practice, we had that gut feeling that one of our therapists was losing clients quickly.
Hmm.
And so we started looking at retention numbers, and that's how I started, first crunching all of that on the back end of the dashboard. And I found that, wait, no, the retention is at least in line with the rest of our therapists for this particular therapist. So that wasn't it. We're like, why are we giving sending so many clients this therapist's way, but they're not staying with us. And we found out that we had a hole between our intake process and then handing them off to the therapist. There was a
Okay.
communication lag there with this particular therapist, where the issue was in that hole between intake and first session, not after the first session. So
Okay.
we wouldn't know that. We thought that maybe there's something, clinically that we need to address, but it wasn't that at all. It was just, oh, well, here's what needs to happen as soon as we give you a client. Or that's when we started actually having our intake coordinator schedule for the therapist rather than having the therapist schedule for themselves. So things like that,
Yeah.
process changes that we wouldn't have made if we didn't have that information in front of us.
That's great.
Yeah.
If we could zoom out just for a minute, like
Sure.
if I was listening to this podcast, I would want to know the answer to this question. Like,
Yeah.
what are the 3 or 4 main types of metrics that a dashboard or the dashboards that you create tracks that you think are important for group practices?
Yep. So we've been talking about the first one, conversion rate based on how someone found your practice. The second one would be your clinical metrics altogether. And the reason I say altogether is most people kind of say, yeah, retention rate is so important, man. If I give a client to somebody, I want to see that client is still with them 3 months down the road. That is important, but it can't be taken by itself. There are other metrics like what I think Practice Vital calls churn rate. There's late cancels and no-shows. Man, that's a money saver if you can see if they're paying for them or not, right? So one of my clients told me last week, this has been so worthwhile to be able to see how many of my therapists are giving freebies to our no-shows and late cancels.
Right.
And so she clamped down on that, and that alone has been an income booster for her.
Yeah.
And then like sessions per client, you could have somebody who has a middle of the road retention rate because they lose clients early on, but they keep clients for a long time if they get past a certain point. So if you have the whole picture, that helps inform where in the process you need to help them clinically, right? Excuse me one second. And then finally, the finances. A lot of practice owners don't know if a given therapist is making them money. That's a hard number to figure out. How much they're bringing into the practice from the EHR, how much you're paying them. Those two numbers. So that part's relatively easy. But what about your overhead expenses? What about all the things that you're spending money on because you have a group practice? How are you going to, allocate that to your therapists? And so I have a method that I've been using for the last year and a half, where I give little mini income statements for each therapist. Income, and for insurance base, we got, income outstanding, what's still out there. Then you move to subtract the payroll, subtract your expenses per therapist, and then that bottom line net profit by clinician shows them whether or not they're making money. And then I have a profit margin as well, that says, are they making money for the practice? And there's so much nuance to that.
There is.
You got supervisors, you have supervisees. What do you do with the supervisee? You're paying the supervisor to supervise the supervisee. What do we do with that money? Well, we have processes in place to put it where it needs to go so that you can actually see how much an intern is costing you because you're paying their supervision and that sort of thing. So
that's so useful.
Yeah.
In so many ways, because the numbers and the data might show you something different than what you think is happening, right? Because I remember one of my longtime therapists who was like the most quote unquote productive in terms of number of sessions, but he'd also been with me a long time. And so he was sort of grandfathered into a pay structure that I had previously. So when I actually looked at it, I was like, it's going really well, but I'm actually not making that much money on this person, which is not the most important. It's not the only thing, of course,
right?
But it is an important thing. So I have a specific question for you on that. I know the numbers are different for every practice based on a
Right.
bunch of things, but like, have you found like an average number of sessions per week that tends to be like the break even? Is it 8 or 10 or
Ooh,
what would that
yeah,
look like?
great
I don't know if,
question.
and if you don't have an answer, that's fine. I'm
No,
just
that's okay.
curious.
I've not analyzed that specifically. I think
Okay.
because the number of sessions that they require, because I track that a lot as well. Like they have a weekly target for their therapist, and so they kind of know who's hitting the mark and who's not. But I think that their pay structure is also based, a lot of them, on how many sessions someone has in a week. And so it kind of goes up and down with the amount of
Yeah.
sessions. I'd say that would be most of the group practice owners work that way, where there's a certain amount that they pay per session. And so it doesn't fluctuate. Their profit margin doesn't fluctuate on that particular number because that all kind of runs together, if that
Got
makes
it.
sense.
Got it. I
Yeah.
think the thing that we will all try to avoid, want to avoid, is having a therapist that works very part-time to the point where it's actually not that beneficial
Yes.
from a financial standpoint. So something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
you're right. I mean, you do tend to see the patterns emerge when the numbers are
mhm,
in front of you. Oh, my interns are not making me any money. Ooh,
right.
I probably should pull back there, or my part-timers, or for each practice's situation is a little bit different. And so, yeah, it's the general
Yeah,
answer to your question is harder to come by, I think, because it is pretty nuanced.
definitely. I
Yeah.
think for both of my businesses, I've had moments where I'm like, I want fewer people on the team that work more.
Absolutely.
Because it's awesome to
Yes.
have a big team, but if certain people are they're just working so little that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That's different for every business, but I've definitely hit that point.
Yes, I completely understand that, and
Yeah,
there as well. Our therapists are contractors, and so everything is exactly fluctuating with how many sessions they have.
got it.
Yeah, so it can be a roller coaster. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have
Um,
one more question before I ask you about details about your services, because I really
sure.
do want to know about that. You've mentioned a metric that's been a game changer for the practices you work with. What is
Yeah,
that metric and why does it matter?
that's the one. I just talked about it with the finances.
Oh, perfect.
So yep, it was practice owners being able to tell how much actual profit they make. And I have somebody that told me about a month ago that is what they use when somebody comes into their office saying, "Can I have a raise or have a percentage,
Yes.
a cut change, that sort of thing." And how are you going to be able to answer that question without seeing whether you can afford it or not, right? Based on how much they're bringing in and how much you're actually spending to have them on the team. Um, so yeah, that's been the game changer. And it was actually a client of mine like a year and a half ago who said, "I want this." I was like, "Okay,
We
let's
can
do
do
it.
that.
Let's
Yeah,
figure it out." So we did.
that's great. That's great. I would love to hear about how you structure your services and what they
Sure.
are specifically, because I think that every group practice owner needs some sort of dashboard. And
Mhm.
you mentioned this a little bit, but we all have an EHR. Some of us have CRMs,
Right.
and we have we have information and data in different places, but it's not pulled together into one spot where we can see it. So yeah, tell me about your services and how it works.
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference between what I do and what I see that's out there now is customization,
Okay.
and being able to pull from more than one source. So I have a one source kind of plan where, let's say you just want to see your clinical metrics from your EHR, but you really want to see them in a particular way. That's my kind of starter plan where we're just pulling from one system, putting
Hmm.
together a dashboard, giving you exactly what you want, the way you want to see it. Maybe you track things differently than what, a more practice vital type or a more, out of the box software as a service kind of place does it. Then that's where you want to go. The middle is called growth, and I can pull together up to 4 data sources. So we're looking at EHR, we're looking at your payroll, your QuickBooks, or whatever you do with your finances. And then if you have a CRM, we can pull that in as well. Um, bring all those data sources together and create more of a front to back,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
coming in the door all the way through to, is my therapist making me money?
Full picture. Got it.
On that full picture. And so that's the middle. And then the one that's kind of the higher end, right, is analytics partner, where I'm basically saying,
Hmm.
let's get together, figure out exactly what you need, as many data sources as you need. We're going to put this dashboard together, meet monthly, add what we need to add going into the future. Just kind of like it's almost on retainer kind of thing, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
let's dedicate time, and there's unlimited updates on your dashboard. I do use a platform that's already out there. I'm a Microsoft guy, and so
Okay.
that is a scary term for many of your listeners.
Yeah.
So I will explain by saying I deal with Microsoft. Nobody
Right.
else has to deal with Microsoft, but they make a great dashboarding product called Power BI, and that is the front end of what I present.
That's excellent. And I don't want to assume this, but this is like a done for you service, right? So
Absolutely.
like you're
Yes.
taking the technical pain out of this for the group practice owner. And then
Yes.
if someone wants to go all the way to like using your data analyst kind of services, you can
Right.
also interpret it for them. But basically, like if I signed up, I don't really have to touch any of that stuff, right? I just have to kind of look at the beautiful dashboard that you created
Yes.
and then do whatever I need to do with that.
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
so I have all the processes that I'm building and have created on the back end that pull that data, and you get weekly refreshes. The analytics, that top tier, gets custom refreshes whenever they want. Yeah. So
That's great.
it's been fun to kind of work that part of my brain and not just do the dashboarding, but kind of do that whole,
Yeah.
what we call ETL in the data world, right? Extract it from the
ETL.
systems, load
Got
it
it.
into a database, and then, yeah, but that's all tech talk.
Thank goodness for people like you and me, Jeff, because like most business owners, not even just therapists, but most business owners don't want to touch any of that stuff.
Right.
And like some of the things that I get excited about with Simple Intake and our CRM and our AI agents and all that stuff, it's awesome. But most people are like, I can't even think about that.
Right.
But we love it, right?
Just
love
let me
what you
drive the
do.
car. Let me drive the
Exactly.
car. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, this is sort of random, but it connects to what we were talking about before. This is something that makes me very happy, is that when we can set up practice with Simple Intake and then pull in inquiries from all the different sources. So the contact
Right.
form pulls in that information, the AI receptionist pulls in that information, and then like let's say the AI chatbot pulls in that information. And each one of those, in the sales world, they call it leads, right?
Right.
Each one of those leads or opportunities is attributed to that source. So we can see exactly where they came from.
Yeah.
And then see them on a visual pipeline. And then based on where they go in that pipeline and whether they're, sort of marked as won or lost, we can pull all kinds of information about that. It's super helpful.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like it's out of the box, ready to be connected to other data. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything to like mess with the inputs or create their own.
Yeah. That's what we do for them. But I think that's an awesome thing to pull all that into one place and be able to do something else interesting with it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool. Good. Thank you so much for
Good.
sharing this information. I hope people really enjoy this episode. It's a little bit in the weeds, a little bit technical, but these are the things that we're talking about are things that we all need. And if you don't have a dashboard for your group practice, reach out to Jeff. And where can people find out more information?
Yeah, it's grouppracticedashboards.com. So it's just spelled exactly as it sounds. There's a form on there for a free 30-minute consult. You just plug your information in there and I'll get back with you and schedule that. And no commitment, just let's talk about your situation and what you would like if you had a dashboard, and go from there.
Perfect. That's awesome that domain was available when you wanted it.
I know, right?
It's a good
Right?
one. It's a really good one. It says
SEO,
what you
baby.
do.
Yeah.
It says what you do. Although I suppose, when I think about it, some other health and wellness businesses use the terminology group practice, right? And I imagine you could do this for really any service-based business that has various providers, right?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I work with several different verticals, meaning different kinds of like categories of businesses.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but the group practices are where my heart is, obviously, because I'm married.
Funny. Yeah, right. Funny little side note. If I could go back to 2017, I might not name my business Productive Therapist because I have limited myself to
Right.
professions that use therapists. Obviously, it could be occupational therapists, it could be physical therapists, etc.
Right.
But I would probably go with Productive Practice, which is the name of my book, because that could be, dental, chiropractic, etc. But I'm with you too. Like I just love serving therapists and helping them. So I'm going to stay in
Yeah.
that lane.
Yeah.
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 Totally. So if you're
Good
getting
stuff.
ready to start something big, be careful about your name. That's what we're saying.
No, it's true. It's true. Yeah, that is very
It's
true.
like you
Well,
want to
awesome.
get that niche, but at the same time, it does limit you in the future.
It's so true. So true. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yep. Thank you.
Take care.
That's it for today. Thanks so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and hit the subscribe button to make sure you never miss an episode. If you're looking for more personalized help, you can reach us through productivetherapist.com. Thanks so much for listening. We are Productive Therapist, and this is the podcast that helps therapists get more done and have more fun.